The girl impressed everyone present with just one sentence, as she invited the man before her to team up. This man had recently been kicked out of his previous team because all he knew was basic healing magic. The kindly receptionist tried to persuade Senna, telling her Roust was completely useless, unable to even cast detoxification spells, and that's why his former teammates had expelled him. Everyone in town knew he was an undesirable partner and probably didn't have much money, not even enough to cover a night's stay at an inn. Senna quickly pulled out a large bag of coins, indicating she could cover the costs herself. The receptionist tried to stop her, warning against showing off wealth as the area was rife with thugs. She suggested that Senna, clearly a newcomer, should let her introduce a suitable team for beginners for a small fee. However, Senna refused, saying she had long wanted to team up with Roust and approached him directly. They successfully formed a team. Roust filled out the application at the Adventurers Guild reception. Senna, watching him, looked nostalgic and wrote her name on the form too. Roust then paid the reception a few coins from his thin wallet and left the guild with Senna. Knowing she was new, he briefed her on important tips. They were near a labyrinth that no one had yet explored fully, making it a magnet for adventurers and turning the town into the largest labyrinth city nearby. The labyrinth leaked magical energy, attracting monsters to its outskirts, making the Western Plains ideal for beginners, although encounters there were rare. Ignoring the receptionist's advice, Roust took Senna straight into the labyrinth. They soon reached its entrance, where Senna insisted on leading as the vanguard since she was a martial artist, and Roust was just a healer. Her enthusiasm impressed Roust, and they proceeded. Senna proved capable, defeating a group of goblins barehanded and proudly showing off to Roust, who praised her and explained that defeating monsters would yield magic stones that could be sold for money. The stones, storing magical power, had many uses. Senna, eager to learn, listened attentively. The magic stones from the goblins they defeated weren't very valuable, but could cover the lodging for the day. Roust suggested they go deeper. Senna agreed, and they narrowly avoided a trap thanks to Roust's quick reaction. He marked the trap with a stone, which immediately caused the floor to collapse, revealing spikes and impaled corpses below. Roust, a healer by trade, had developed keen observation skills over time. As they talked and moved forward, they encountered a minotaur, a mid-level demon not usually found so close to the surface. However, together, they felt confident they could take it on. Hearing Roust's instructions, Senna wasn't scared at all. She jumped down immediately, rushing forward to fight the orc. However, the orc's body was too tough, and it was difficult to harm it with bare hands. Meanwhile, flying debris scratched Senna's skin, and she almost got hit by the orc. Luckily, she managed to jump out in time. But as the orc pursued her triumphantly, Senna had no escape. Just in time, Roust stepped in front of her and defeated the enemy with one blow, making it look effortless. When Senna asked, Roust replied with the usual explanation that long experience in the field had taught him some close combat techniques. Noticing the scrapes on Senna's arm, Roust ignored her objections and healed her, then checked the fallen magic stone. Although the stone could fetch a good price, they decided to move deeper into the labyrinth and brought back a large bag of magic stones to the guild. The receptionist immediately realized they must have ventured deep inside the labyrinth. Senna quickly explained it was her idea and that they encountered the orc above. The receptionist was not surprised, noting that the guild's upper management seemed busy with some labyrinth issue, which wasn't her concern. She eagerly bought all the magic stones, and they earned a large sum of money, much more than Roust ever got with his old team. Realizing he had been deceived by his former teammates, Roust felt no desire for retribution now that he had a new partner. As Roust left the guild, a man upstairs was watching him before going down to inquire about him with the receptionist. Learning about Roust teaming up with the blue-haired girl and that they went to an inn, Senna wished to stay in the same room with him, but they could afford separate rooms. After a hearty meal, they retired to their rooms, and Senna fell into childhood memories. She had been saved by Roust as a child and had been drawn to him ever since, deciding to become an adventurer and protect her savior. Now, her dream was realized. Hearing that Roust had been expelled from his team, she hurried to the town, though Roust didn't recognize her, perhaps because her hair color had changed. Senna comforted herself, thinking it was okay as long as she could protect him. Meanwhile, she wondered why others said such a capable person was incompetent. Roust was expelled from his team because during an encounter with a tough nine-headed Hydra, a female teammate was poisoned. Roust, though a healer, lacked detoxification skills, leading to disdain from his teammates. However, Roust had previously advised them to prepare antidotes, which they deemed too expensive and blamed him, unfairly accusing him of incompetence in detoxification. One was poisoned, another too timid, and another a healer who couldn't fight. Seeing the situation deteriorating, the blonde adventurer turned and ran, followed closely by the timid mage. Left with no choice, Roust had to retreat as well, carrying his poisoned teammate. The nine-headed Hydra simply watched as they left, not pursuing them at all. Upon returning to the Adventurers Guild, the blonde publicly announced that Roust was expelled from the team. Despite their own lack of preparation, they blamed Roust, eventually ousting him by a vote of 3-1. This incident has bothered Roust ever since, and it wasn't the first time. He had been deemed incompetent 6 years ago as well. Despite this label, he joined a small team, hoping to prove his capability. However, they only used him as a shield and bait. After escaping from a beast's clutches, his teammates faced the creature's brutal revenge. After leaving the labyrinth alone, Roust encountered a group of goblins attacking a carriage. A little girl watched in terror. Without hesitation, Roust charged in, fighting the goblins with a stick, determined to save even just one small life. After all, as an orphan of the labyrinth, he had little to lose. Roust didn't die. When he next opened his eyes, he saw the unharmed girl and the knights who had arrived in response to an emergency call. The goblins were already dealt with. Roust didn't credit himself for the rescue, still feeling inadequate. Yet the girl earnestly thanked him, saying his efforts had bought them time until the knights arrived. She even complimented him, calling him handsome. Roust noticed scrapes on her arm and healed her. He shared his experiences in the labyrinth, moving the girl to tears. Inspired by his stories, she decided to become an adventurer when she grew up and protect Roust. After parting ways, Senna left with the knights. Roust knew she was a noblewoman and unlikely to become an adventurer. Nevertheless, her words gave him the courage to continue his path. He later met a master and learned essential adventurer skills, becoming a versatile hexagon warrior capable of standing on his own. Eventually, he joined a new team, though they too let him down. But that didn't matter anymore because he had found a new partner. As he pondered this, Senna came over to invite him for breakfast. Their plan for the day was to explore deeper parts of the labyrinth. They reached a teleportation circle, a technology lost centuries ago. Despite deeper exploration by adventurers, only a few such circles were known. The two used a teleportation circle to arrive at the middle layer of the labyrinth, where they encountered intermediate-level magical beasts, such as incorporeal wraiths. At this point, Senna's bare-handed combat was ineffective. However, she had no intention of fleeing and shared her plan with Roust. Roust would confront the wraith first and then run to draw its attention. Senna planned to hide behind a pillar along the way. Humans can control the energy within their bodies through training, and an energy-wrapped fist can shatter even a spectral body. As the wraith approached, Senna burst out and struck it in the chest, dispersing it. The magic stone it dropped fell to the ground. Earlier in the fight, Senna had injured her arm. Roust used a magical artifact that enhanced healing to treat her. These artifacts were also made from processed magic stones. The duo returned from their adventure with a valuable magic stone and went happily back to the inn. Along the way, they came across a dispute, but Roust, accustomed to such sights, didn't intervene to avoid adding trouble for the serious adventurers and townspeople. Instead, he took Senna out for a lavish meal to celebrate their day's success. During the meal, Senna asked about a strange rectangular building in the town. Roust didn't know much about it either, despite having asked others out of curiosity. It turned out that even the craftsmen didn't know what they were building or who commissioned it, as all dealings were handled by agents who themselves reported to many others, indicating that the true mastermind wanted to remain anonymous. However, since the structure seemed harmless, the residents didn't mind. Roust felt that building walls might be more useful, although the town, filled with adventurers, seemed not to need them anymore. After returning to the inn, Roust and Senna said goodnight. Senna hesitated as if she wanted to share a room with Roust, but ultimately didn't say anything. Roust was also thinking about the noble lady and whether she would appear again. Fortunately, Her encouraging words kept his spirit of adventure alive. A few days later, Roust's former teammates recruited a new, attractive healer and prepared to fight the Hydra again. The Hydra was still recovering from their last encounter, where Roust had cut off several of its heads. At the site, the blonde leader asked the new healer to lead the charge, claiming Roust used to do the same. The healer found this absurd, but complied as long as she could use her detoxification skills. Meanwhile, Roust and Senna's exploration was going smoothly. The receptionist suggested they could add more members to tackle more dangerous beasts, but Roust preferred to maintain the current team size. The receptionist then recommended renting a house, as many teams do, to store equipment and foster camaraderie, noting that many co-ed teammates have developed romantic relationships this way. Senna's eyes lit up instantly. However, the older lady thought that she and Roust clearly wouldn't work out. Roust, on the other hand, was reminded of some unpleasant memories. His previous team had also rented a standalone villa, but his room was always used as a storage closet. It was evident he was badly bullied. Luckily, his former teammates were not faring well either. After another failed attempt, Blondie naturally blamed others, but the new healer saw right through it. The team's strength was simply lacking, yet they still chose a frontal attack. Blondie then realized Roust might actually be quite useful, even though they had easily tricked him out of his share of the rewards. Now, they regretted it, and decided to ask Roust to come back. However, Blondie still acted superior, thinking that just by asking, Roust would eagerly return, given their team's fame. So the next day, they approached the Adventurers Guild and publicly invited Roust to rejoin their squad. Roust was numbed by their approach, and Senna, just having collected her own rewards, learned that the boasting Blondie was his former teammate. Blondie even accidentally admitted that he would throw Roust under the bus if anything went wrong. Roust had already seen through these people, even if they promised to share future rewards equally. Blondie continued to speak ill of the new healer, his careless attitude showing no respect for Roust. Therefore, without hesitation, Roust refused. Senna quickly stepped forward and told Blondie that Roust would never return to them. Blondie smirked, clearly disbelieving her words. Roust then made it clear once and for all that he had new partners and would not be returning. Blondie began to slander Senna out of frustration, assuming she would use Roust the same way they had. This was projection. Seeing his shameless former teammate publicly bullying the young lady, Roust could no longer stand by. He didn't hate these people initially, but if they dared to harm Senna, they shouldn't blame him for not being polite. Realizing Roust was serious, and unable to hide a trace of fear, Blondie could only watch as they left the guild. Unwilling to let it go, he immediately asked the receptionist to introduce him to powerful adventurers, determined to defeat the nine-headed Hydra. Just then, a formidable man approached and disarmed Blondie with a single strike, proving his strength and Blondie's lack of it. But Blondie was adaptable. Wanting strong adventurers even at the cost of embarrassment, he took the man, introduced as Seeger, back with him. Meanwhile, Roust and Senna returned to the inn, where Senna encountered the innkeeper's daughter knocking on Roust's door, saying someone was looking for them. It turned out to be another of Roust's former teammates, the timid magician. She also brought along a new healer, Layla. They came to ask Roust for help. Blondie and his team had foolishly gone to fight the Hydra again, even without buying any antidotes. The magician had realized from the last battle just how powerful Roust was, so she wanted him to rejoin their team to help defeat the Hydra. It seemed that Blondie had not told them about being rejected by Roust. Senna was curious why the young girl wanted to save the reckless Blondie. The young girl knew Blondie had many flaws, but they were still teammates. Hearing the word teammates made Senna angry. If they were teammates, what was Roust then? The young girl cried, saying she was forced into it, and if she didn't comply, she might have been the one kicked out of the team. She was just a novice adventurer and lacked the ability to discern right from wrong. But now she knew Blondie was wrong, yet she couldn't bear to watch her former teammates walk into their doom. Layla told Roust that during her unconscious moments, the girl had been calling out his name, wanting to apologize. Roust softened in the end. He didn't hate these teammates and would not return to the team, but he would help them this time for old time's sake. Then the innkeeper brought a feast for the young girl to enjoy. Layla and the three of them stepped aside to discuss. Remembering Blondie's past comments about Layla, Roust kindly reminded her that this team was not a good place to stay long-term. However, Layla couldn't bear to leave the young girl, so the matter was temporarily set aside. To their surprise, upon their return, they saw Blondie had brought back a new teammate. Layla and Seeger seemed to know each other well. Layla quietly asked Seeger if he had taken on another troublesome task. Initially, Seeger denied it, but noticing the huge sword on his back, Layla asked if it was stolen. Seeger quickly explained that he had officially inherited it from his master, inadvertently revealing his true identity. Satisfied, Layla did not press further. After regrouping, the small team set off to fight the Hydra for the third time. Senna's skills have greatly improved. When exploring dungeons, Roust doesn't need to intervene. Senna can handle everything alone. After killing 2 beasts, another unexpectedly emerged from behind. Fortunately, Roust warned her in time, and Senna instantly took it down with a spinning sidekick, resulting in an instant kill. Right after, her stomach started growling with hunger. Roust then took her to a clearing to eat. The meals were prepared by the innkeeper. During the meal, Roust briefed her about the Hydra. This beast is extremely fierce and venomous, with its body covered in strong muscles that can easily deflect poor physical or magical attacks. Senna couldn't help but worry about Amiya. Luckily, Hydras are not uncommon, and adventurers have developed many methods to deal with them, including specialized antidotes, though expensive. However, Miss Layla can use detoxification magic, which should handle the poison well. Roust also mentioned his former teammates. Though Marugus has a questionable character, his swordsmanship is indeed good. Sebelia's speed and agility are top-notch. She can approach a Hydra from behind, even with its 9 heads. Hearing Roust praise his former teammates made Senna a bit unhappy. She expressed her tiredness of the labyrinth and suggested exploring elsewhere. The wetlands were nearby, so they headed there. Meanwhile, Marugus and his team were preparing to fight the Hydra again. Marugus was competent, but his abilities were insufficient against Seeger, who nearly severed one of the Hydra's heads with a single strike. Just as Seeger was about to deliver another blow, he stopped, not wanting to steal Marugus's glory. Marugus felt relieved, grabbed his greatsword, and charged at the Hydra again, only to be knocked back by a powerful headbutt. Layla had just finished detoxifying Sebelia. Seeing that Seeger was holding back, she wondered what he was planning. However, their previous attacks had already significantly weakened the Hydra. If Sebelia could keep the enemy distracted and Marugus launched a frontal assault, they might actually succeed in defeating it. Amiya also had magical support, but just then, a Hydra swung its tail, hitting a rock that struck Amiya. As the Hydra approached, fear filled Amiya's heart, fueling the wounded beast's strength. Marugus quickly asked Seeger what was happening. With her broad knowledge, Layla recognized the black mist as a source of magic, typically found in the deepest parts of the labyrinth. The Hydra, having absorbed a great deal of magic, became lively and mutated, regrowing a severed head. They were no match for the Hydra now, but the arrogant Marugus refused to give up. He charged forward, trying to chop off another head, only to shatter his sword. As the Hydra lunged to bite, Roust suddenly blocked the attack. Seeger followed with a strike, each landing a hit on the Hydra. Knowing Roust was a healer, Seeger asked him to treat Amiya. However, Amiya's condition was poor, and Roust only knew basic healing spells. Layla was about to dismiss his efforts as futile when she saw Roust successfully layering healings. His former teammates weren't surprised, and, astonishingly, Amiya's wounds actually healed. Layla was shocked. Normally, even drinking many potions wouldn't cure a cold immediately, similar to how healing spells worked. She had never heard of such rapid effectiveness and became curious about Roust's identity. Fortunately, Amiya woke up out of danger. Seeger, who had been confronting the Hydra, noticed it seemed only interested in fighting Roust alone. Senna volunteered to lead the charge, and Roust followed her. Senna charged at the Hydra barehanded to draw its attention, while Roust followed with a dagger. Below them, Seeger managed to chop off one of the Hydra's heads with a sword. Clearly not an ordinary weapon, but a legendary one imbued with great power, the magic sword. However, Senna's situation was tricky. Her punches couldn't inflict significant damage on the Hydra, and she was thrown back. The Hydra did not kill Senna, but seemed to use her as a hostage, forcing Roust into a one-on-one battle. After mutating, the beast's intelligence also appeared to have increased. With no other choice, Roust faced the Hydra alone, but he was outmatched and began to lose consciousness. Just as Seeger was about to intervene, Roust miraculously woke up, seized the dagger, and a terrifying power surged through him. He transformed, growing a horn on his head. With a few swift strikes, Roust decapitated the Hydra, and its body disintegrated instantly. It was a one-hit kill. However, Roust then collapsed again, only to wake up shortly after. Senna was cured of her poison by Layla, who eagerly asked about his transformation. Meanwhile, Marugus was foolishly cheerful, praising Roust's formidable power and even suggesting he could defeat the labyrinth's master, as if they hadn't once expelled Roust from their team. Marugus shamelessly proposed sharing the Hydra's dropped magic stones only with Roust and Sibelia, deeming the others useless. This time, Amiya was expelled from the team. Marugus went so far as to suggest selling her as a slave, discussing this openly in front of everyone. Unable to bear it, Senna punched Marugus, who angrily cited the guild's prohibition against adventurers fighting each other, threatening her with expulsion. However, no one would testify for him, especially since Marugus and Sibelia were openly discussing human trafficking, a serious offense. Moreover, Seeger's true identity was as a direct agent of the Royal City Adventurers Guild, with the authority to revoke other adventurers' licenses. Authorities sent him to check on the deteriorating public safety of the town, where he coincidentally encountered Marugus and Sibelia discussing selling a young girl in public, effectively walking into his trap. Both are facing expulsion from the guild and forced labor until death. Despite this, they refused to yield and questioned Seeger's inability to overlook their intentions since they hadn't acted yet. Surprisingly, Roust pleaded on their behalf, knowing they once aspired to be adventurers but had lost their way. He hoped Seeger would give them another chance to redeem themselves as adventurers. Seeger agreed, albeit skeptically, allowing them to remain adventurers under surveillance but away from the town, recognizing that expulsion alone might not reform them. Seeger decided to stay in the town to monitor them. Roust came to terms with his past and planned to continue adventuring with Senna. At night, Seeger met with his old acquaintance Layla, revealing his mission to oversee the town. The Royal Guild suspected internal sabotage behind the town's issues and sought to uncover the truth with Layla's help. They were former teammates, and she agreed to help, requesting that Amiya join their team. Seeger readily accepted, seeing the benefit in additional support and increasing the number of people under his watch, including Roust. Layla, Seeger, and Amiya formed a new team. Roust was happy for them, but continued as a duo with Senna. Today, they needed to visit the guild to exchange the magic stones they collected from defeating the Hydra the day before for money and to check for new missions. Senna found fighting monsters somewhat tedious. When Senna heard how considerate her brother was being, she blushed instantly. However, upon entering the guild, the atmosphere felt off. Everyone had heard about Roust defeating the Hydra, and given the town's many rogues, there was concern they might target the magic stones. Roust quietly warned Senna just before an adventurer team stopped them. The team's leader wanted to talk, not to steal the stones, but to apologize to Roust. The adventurers knew of Marugus's bad nature but had failed to help Roust, even mocking him as incompetent. Now that Marugus was gone, and Roust had proven his strength, they felt ashamed. Senna was not so quick to forgive, considering the long period of mockery Roust endured. She suggested they kneel for 3 days and nights as penance, which alarmed Roust. He quickly intervened, saying that would turn him from being seen as incompetent to being a villain. The adventurers were relieved, and Roust told them he had only managed to defeat the Hydra with help, still considering himself an incompetent healer and asking to be called as such. With the situation resolved, Roust and the adventurers made peace. Then, he and Senna took the magic stones to the receptionist. Because these stones were from a mutated Hydra, their value had increased tenfold. Mutations were rare, usually occurring deep in labyrinths, yet the Hydra had mutated in the swamp. Roust and Senna had also encountered orcs wandering the upper levels, suggesting something unusual was happening in the labyrinth. Other adventurers had noted similar incidents, and normally the guild would send a team to investigate. As they discussed this, their supervisor, Mr. Hazam, approached. After hearing their concerns, he reminded them that the guild was too busy for such minor issues, and even suggested that if Roust was so worried, he should leave town. Senna was angered by Hazam's dismissive attitude toward her brother. The receptionist was not surprised, knowing their branch chief, Masuto, hardly ever appeared, and let Hazam run things. Rumors said Masuto was an old man, which explained his absence. Hazam was strict, and the staff feared him. As an adventurer, Roust had no say in guild affairs and had to drop the matter for now. Then Roust and Senna began selecting missions. Senna was interested in a mission to subdue a magical beast. However, the front desk clerk advised them against taking it because a phoenix had recently made its nest near the middle layer's teleportation circle, which was why the bounty was set so high. She explained that a healer and a martial artist alone could not defeat it. At a minimum, they would need a warrior, a mage, and a healer capable of group healing. This setup perfectly described Layla's team. The pair immediately sought out Layla's group. Layla thought it was a good idea. Seeger also wanted to keep an eye on Roust, so teaming up would be more convenient. Amiya had no objections. She felt ashamed of her past actions towards Roust, but since Roust himself didn't mind, they decided to set out early the next morning. Today, they would buy some equipment and supplies. Roust took Senna to a potion shop because potions were more effective for treating burns than healing magic. Senna thought Roust was very knowledgeable. While she was pondering this, she was suddenly hugged by an older sister figure, which startled her into throwing a punch. However, the woman easily dodged it. It was then that Senna recognized her as Miss Rama, a very strong adventurer from the great magical world. Although Rama said she was here to explore the labyrinth, Senna knew her father must have sent her. Rama did not deny this. At that moment, Roust returned. To his surprise, he knew Rama as well, and she was also his mentor and a good friend of Senna's father. It truly is a small world. Their reminiscing was cut short as Rama wanted to discuss some family matters with Senna and asked Roust to leave, considering him an outsider. However, Roust refused. He and Senna were teammates, not strangers. Moreover, since Rama was sent by Senna's father, it was likely to take her back, and he wouldn't let his mentor succeed so easily. Rama then threw a small fireball, which Roust dodged, unfortunately turning a customer's chicken leg behind him to charcoal. Seeing Roust's improvement, Rama allowed him to stay and listen. Senna explained that she hadn't run away from home. She just hadn't had the chance to explain to her parents. She had even left a letter saying she was going to find her brother and told her parents not to worry. Calling a stranger brother was bound to cause her parents concern. There was something else Senna couldn't say out loud. Since being saved, she had people track and monitor Roust. That's how she was able to quickly leave home and join his team after he was expelled from his previous team. Knowing that Senna hadn't consulted her parents, Roust urged her to discuss it with them, as being an adventurer still required family consent. Senna felt that if she went back, she wouldn't be able to return. Rama then revealed that Senna's father was not opposed to her adventuring. He was just worried about her sudden departure. Now that Rama saw Senna was with her clumsy apprentice, she felt reassured. After sending Roust away, Rama addressed Senna's current dilemma. Despite abandoning her family to be by his side, Roust seemed to not need her help, surely making the young girl feel uneasy. Even though Senna felt this way, she wouldn't admit it, only saying that her brother was very capable, skilled in healing magic and combat. Rama was not surprised by these events. After all, she and another person had taught her everything. Senna began praising Roust's character traits, noting how he always prioritizes others. He had even arranged today's commission specifically for her, hoping to help her gain some experience so that even if he were not around one day, Senna wouldn't be forced by circumstances. She had come here intending to help her brother, but ended up being helped by him instead, feeling like a burden to him. Rama quickly comforted Senna, pointing out that Roust had changed a lot. He never used to show such expressions before, and it was all because of Senna, so it was fine for them to continue together. Seeing the two young people leave together happily, Rama felt reassured. However, she had her own business to attend to. That night, she went alone to the Adventurers Guild to find out what Mr. Masuto was really up to. Early the next morning, Roust and his group gathered and set off. The innkeeper had prepared some food especially for them. With their food and equipment, they went directly to the labyrinth and teleported to the middle layer. Phoenixes typically live in areas with high ceilings or open views. They soon arrived at a cave with a newly opened path that no adventurers had yet explored. If they could defeat the phoenix circling nearby, the treasure and items inside would be theirs. Roust first checked the surroundings. Fallen pillars showed signs of high temperatures, indicating the phoenix's nest was nearby. He threw a stone to probe, and the phoenix, being the most territorial beast, appeared immediately, showing its extraordinary aggressiveness with flames. Meanwhile, Rama entered the Adventurers Guild through the main entrance. The receptionist immediately recognized her as an important client. However, when Rama asked to see the branch chief, Mr. Masuto, the receptionist broke into a sweat and reminded her that she needed an appointment or a referral letter to meet him. If it was someone familiar, a notification might suffice. Rama admitted she was quite familiar with him, to the extent that she almost wanted to kill him. The receptionist, frightened, immediately refused her. At this point, Rama had no choice but to resort to force, brewing a fireball in her palm. Other adventurers noticed and became cautious. Just then, Hazam finally arrived, asking Rama to speak with him. At the same time, Roust and his group were bracing themselves. Flying monsters are indeed difficult to fight. They regretted not buying a bow in advance. Neither Roust's sword nor Senna's fists could reach the phoenix. Senna thought the phoenix couldn't reach them either, but before she could finish her sentence, a fireball shot by the phoenix hit them. Roust immediately dove to protect her, surprising her with his ability to attack from a distance. Rama visited the guild to discuss what Roust mentioned yesterday. Having been to this town before, she noticed more changes this time, such as an increase in thugs, which she suspected were summoned by the guild. Moreover, there were mysterious stone pillars all over town. What exactly were they? Hazam pretended to be clueless, claiming they had nothing to do with the guild. But Rama, experienced as she was, didn't believe such nonsense. Everyone knows the Adventurers Guild holds absolute power, almost making its president the king of the town. Yet Hazam, acting as the interim president, claimed ignorance of these happenings, which was unlikely. She had already done her research. The guild not only brought in notorious adventurers, but also expelled any who questioned its methods, as if it didn't want them in town. Was something big about to happen that required sacrificing many adventurers, hence keeping some expendable ones like those from the Labyrinth rampage? Meanwhile, Roust's group was struggling against the Phoenix. They couldn't hit it, and were hard-pressed to defend against its fireballs, choosing to dodge temporarily. Fortunately, their team had a mage, Seeger, who suggested that Amiya use long-distance water magic to attack the Phoenix's wings, which were covered in flames like feathers. By extinguishing them, they hoped to force it downward. While Amiya prepared the spell, Seeger would protect her, with Roust and Senna assisting. The trio drew the Phoenix's attention, allowing Amiya time to ready her spell. She finally conjured a water arrow and shot it at the Phoenix, forcing it to land. Seeger seized the opportunity to strike, but his cut was too shallow, and the creature flew up again. On the other side, Hazam denied Rama's claims, but she was not easily fooled. Although labyrinth rampages were rare, the recent abnormalities in the town were real and indicative of such events, especially with the mutation of magical beasts. It was evident that the town and its surroundings were saturated with magic. In fact, after being injured, Roust's phoenix unexpectedly mutated. Its red flames instantly turned into a more terrifying blue. Encountering two monster mutations in just a few days was definitely suspicious. They didn't have time to investigate the cause, as dealing with the phoenix was more urgent. Amiya was nearly breaking down in fear. She always wondered why such things happened to her. Frightened, she couldn't help but step back, causing Layla to panic as well, since Amiya was the only mage in their team. If Amiya fell into a state of fear again, it could end like the last time with the Hydra, where the enemy grew stronger. How could they comfort Amiya? Unexpectedly, at that moment, the phoenix charged towards them. Amiya's legs were frozen in fear, and Layla had to drag her away. Thankfully, Seeger returned just in time, blocking a burst of flames with his sword. While defending against the fireballs, he tried to awaken Amiya. Layla also reached out to Amiya, but Amiya refused because she could stand on her own feet. Meanwhile, Senna and the others were buying time for Amiya's magic. Senna's fists were ineffective against the phoenix, and her gauntlets easily caught fire. The phoenix seized this opportunity to charge at her. Roust quickly stepped in front of Senna. His sword was too ordinary and got burnt after a single block. Fortunately, Amiya's magic was nearly ready, and Layla was replenishing her mana. Finally, another arrow was formed, this time an ice arrow which was more powerful. It shot the phoenix down, but the creature suddenly changed its position in midair. Seeger couldn't reach it, but Senna could. She agilely jumped into the air, stepping on the ruins, and infused her feet with magic, kicking the phoenix's head and slamming it to the ground. Roust then stabbed its core in the forehead with a dagger. The formidable phoenix was finally defeated. Everyone praised Amiya for her brilliant performance. Overjoyed, Amiya wept, having overcome her past trauma. However, Seeger and Layla felt it was a pity they didn't see Roust enter that state again. It seemed they had to keep observing. When Roust and the others returned to the inn, Rama had been waiting for a long time. She wasn't surprised that they had successfully hunted the phoenix, so she also earned a lot of money and insisted on treating her master to a good meal. Roust, not being stingy, decided to treat everyone to a feast. Rama, after drinking too much, blurted out Senna's true identity. She was actually the daughter of a countess. Hearing that countess's surname, Roust finally remembered the girl he had once saved. That girl was Senna. Inside the Adventurers Guild, Hazam reported to the rumored President Misuto about the mutation of the monster and the arrival of the flame god Rama in this town. Roust and his group only got a bag of money for the Phoenix magic stone they found. Senna was shocked by the low value. However, the front desk lady suggested she check the contents of the bag first. To their surprise, it was filled with shiny gold coins. To avoid attracting unwanted attention, Roust quickly had Senna secure the money and gave the front desk lady some silver coins as a tip. Meanwhile, a puppeteer on the street was telling an exciting story about a hero defeating a wicked dragon, captivating a group of children. Roust and Senna were nearby, enjoying breakfast. Having just sold the magic stone for a good sum, Senna suggested they rent a detached house together. Roust seemed hesitant and asked if Senna was unhappy with the inn. Senna quickly denied it, stating the inn was comfortable and the landlady was kind. However, the frequent noisy disturbances made it hard for her to have quiet time with her brother, which is why she wanted a place where they could have long talks by the fire on cold nights, drink hot beverages, and discuss their adventures, allowing their relationship to grow warmer and more intimate, culminating in a passionate kiss by the furnace. Lost in her fantasy, Senna was reluctant to consider Roust's reluctance to rent a house, thinking it was better to save their money for emergencies, and they hadn't yet responded to Seeger's suggestion to merge their teams after the last Phoenix hunt. Roust liked the idea of forming a team since Seeger was a strong ally, which would allow them to venture deeper into the labyrinth. Though Senna preferred a world just for the two of them, she supported Roust's decision, and they ended up forming a team, celebrating later at the inn. Amia, the youngest, was tired, so Layla took her back to the room. Before leaving, Layla reminded Seeger to build a good relationship with Roust. Senna followed and shared her worries with Layla about living with Roust and his rejection, fearing he disliked her. Layla reassured her, sensing that Roust cherished Senna and might be the type to slowly reduce the distance in their relationship, which instantly relaxed Senna, appreciating Layla's extensive experience in romance. Downstairs, Roust and Seeger were having a man-to-man talk. Seeger noticed Senna's interest in Roust and questioned if his firm rejection stemmed from dislike. Roust quickly denied this, explaining that Senna was his salvation during tough times and his hope when he felt hopeless about the future. When he was ousted from his previous team, it was Senna who approached him to form a new team, making it impossible for him to dislike her. Seeger understood and asked Roust if he liked Senna. From Roust's expression, it was clear he did. Meanwhile, Layla and Senna were discussing Seeger. Layla and Seeger had been teammates before. Many men had pursued the beautiful Layla, joining their team just to get close to her. Amia, who had just sat up, eagerly joined the conversation. Layla revealed that one man who failed to win her over tried to force himself on her while Seeger and the others were away. Fortunately, Layla defended herself successfully and managed the situation without further consequences. Seeger, feeling guilty for allowing the man into the team, kicked him out and then disappeared himself, only to unexpectedly meet them again in this town. Layla wasn't blaming Seeger. She was just upset he had disappeared suddenly. The innkeeper's young daughter, who had walked in during their talk, immediately sensed that Layla liked Seeger. Unfortunately, Seeger was oblivious to Layla's feelings and was more focused on gossiping about Roust's love life, questioning why Roust wouldn't live with Senna if he liked her. Roust was about to explain when the front desk lady interrupted with her investigation results, commissioned by Roust. It turned out Roust had been investigating Senna, who was indeed the only child of a count and countess, likely to inherit the title. Senna had insisted on becoming an adventurer despite her father's initial disapproval, which ceased after a particular incident involving her hair color changing from blonde, like her parents', to blue one morning. This was also why Roust hadn't recognized her at first. Her father's sudden approval raised suspicions of a serious, undisclosed reason, possibly related to her health, though Roust and the front desk lady disagreed, noting Senna appeared perfectly healthy. The investigation confirmed that Senna's adventuring was with her family's blessing, relieving Roust. If her father had still been against it, Roust was ready to help Senna negotiate, but with her parents' approval, there was no need for worry. Meanwhile, Layla and the others learned about what Senna had done for Roust. Layla couldn't help but feel moved, wondering when she could be as proactive as Senna. The other three, inspired, decided to give her a push and led her straight to Seeger. Gathering her courage, Layla asked to speak with Seeger alone. The two went up to the terrace, encouraged by her three close friends. This time, Layla decided to be direct and asked Seeger if she could be his partner, not just in adventures, but in life. Seeger, confused, wondered if they weren't already on the same team. Frustrated, Layla explained she meant a life partner, not an adventure partner. Only then did Seeger realize what she meant, his face turning red. He liked Layla, but hesitated, saying he needed to think it over. Layla was tempted to hit him, but considering Seeger's usual cluelessness, his response was already a good sign. He had never considered such matters before. Without denying his feelings, Seeger stepped beside Layla, and they watched a meteor streak across the sky. Inspired by this, Roust resolved to talk to Senna the next day. On the main street, a puppeteer continued telling a tale of a hero and a wicked dragon. The hero couldn't defeat the dragon, but at the crucial moment, Sleeping Beauty stepped forward. To put the dragon to sleep, she had to sacrifice her life. Believing the hero would rise again to save the world, she confronted the dragon. With Sleeping Beauty's sacrifice, the world was temporarily at peace, and her blue hair spilled out from beneath her cloak.